Welcome to the Vox Introduction Training DVD. My name is Mark King and I'm responsible for the sales and marketing of Vox Telepreneur, and it's going to be my pleasure today to take you through the intro session. To start with, just like to go through the agenda that we're going to be presenting. We'll be going through Vox Telecom, the group, where it's come from, how it's come into existence, the road to Vox Telepreneur, why it's come into existence as well, and how we've made that come into being. We're going to be touching on the benefits that the customers are going to be receiving by coming on board with Vox Telepreneur, and also the suite of products that we're offering, which, if you're like me, will believe is a fantastic offering to take out into the public. We'll also be touching on the business opportunity and why we believe this is one of the best kept secrets at the moment in South Africa, as well as the super dealer opportunity, and then just to summarize what we've been through in total. Vox Telecom as a group came into being in 1998. We started life as the Data Pro Group, and we listed on the Altex in 2004. So it's a listed company, and we changed our name in July of 2007 to the Vox Telecom Pty Limited to reflect the nature of the business and how we've grown. We listed on the Altex in 2004 and currently are turning over 2 billion rand per annum, which is a fairly substantial amount. We currently have over 700 employees working at Vox Telecom, and our monthly recurring revenue is 176 million rand per month. We have a 47.6% BE shareholding, which is the largest for a telecoms company within the South African domain. Our mission is to be the leading alternative supplier of voice and data communication services in the South African market. If we look at the Vox Telecom group as a whole, there's a number of different subsidiaries that make up the entity. First and foremost, we have Vox Orion, which is a managed voice services division of the group, and they look after the corporate clients for their voice requirements. We have Vox Data Pro, which traditionally started off in the data environment, but is pretty much the sales and marketing arm within the group. We have Atlantic Internet Services, which is a franchise division. We have Vox Ambia, our faxing division, and Vox Exchange, which allows for the purchasing of hardware and peripheral equipment. We also have VoIP Telecoms, which primarily looks after the government and quasi-government institutions. But what we're here to talk about today is Vox Telepreneur, the new division, which came into being in February of 2008. If we have a look at our shareholding position at the moment, as I mentioned, currently 47.6% is BEE, and some of our major investors are the Loreka Meteor Group, as well as the Mvela Panda Group, and I think the numbers speak for themselves. Vox Telecom's vision is to be the leading alternative telecoms provider. And if we have a look at where we've traditionally played in the marketplace, I'm sure you'll agree that the figures bear testimony to the fact that we've achieved some tremendous success in those areas. But for us to be recognized as a true telecoms provider, we suddenly realized that we didn't have an offering for the consumer or the small office, home office segment. And to that end, this is where Telepreneur came to the fore. So where did we go with this particular initiative? First and foremost, we had to have a look at what was currently out in the marketplace. And if we have a look at what you're currently paying for your telecommunication costs, the facts are fairly stark. For a local call, you're paying 39 cents per minute. For a national call, 65 cents per minute. For a cellular call, R1.89. And depending on your international destination, let's say somewhere to the UK, for example, you're paying 90 cents per minute. So our opening gambit was, what can we do to try and improve your outbound call rates? Now, unfortunately, we do not have an exchange in every suburb, in every city throughout the whole of South Africa. So we can only give one rate, whether it be local or national. And to that end, our prices for either a local or a national call, so whether you're phoning your mother in Cape Town or your next door neighbor, you're going to be paying 39 cents. Hopefully you can see from that, on a national basis, there's quite a substantial savings that you're going to be making. When it comes to the cellular calls, we're charging R1.49 per minute. Once again, some serious savings there. And when we start looking at the international destinations, using the UK once more as an example, we're charging 36 cents per minute. So from an opening gambit, we thought that was a pretty good offering. But we wanted to do something a little bit more and a little bit different. And this is where we decided to do something that had never been done in the South African market up until now. And that was anybody on our network phoning anybody else on our network, we were going to allow that call to go out for free. So once again, depending on where you're dialing out to, if you've got a lot of inter-branch calls and that person is on a Vox network and you're dialing from a Vox network, then that call is going to cost you absolutely zero. If we have a look at the ratios that are currently going on in the South African marketplace, and please understand these are the averages for South Africa, and each individual is different, so your ratios might not be like this, but the average is that 48% of all calls made from a landline are currently going to a cellular telephone. 29% will be going to a local destination, 17% nationally, and by nationally I mean anything outside your dialing code area. So if you're in a 021 area, anything outside 021 is considered a national call. And then internationally, 6% are going out internationally. So if we take those as being the ratios, we've got a pretty good understanding of where the calls are actually going to. So how can we take advantage of this? In 2005, the legislation was changed to allow VoIP to be used in the South African environment. And for those of you who don't know what VoIP is, very simply, VoIP stands for Voice over Internet Protocol. What it really means is very similar back to the day of Alexander Graham Bell, when we took acoustic energy from our voice and converted it into an electric signal that allowed us to send it over a telephone line. All we're doing today is taking voice, converting it into a digital signal, and moving that over a data network instead of a voice network. But with the advent of this legislation, obviously interconnect agreements had to be put in place. The reason being is that we've now got our network. It makes sense that you'd want to be able to speak to the Vodacoms, the MTN, Cell Cs, and Telcoms. And so the interconnect agreement was a very important aspect of making this whole legislation come together. And to that end, we're very proud to say that we do have the interconnect agreements in place with all of the above-mentioned service providers. But what is quite important for everyone to understand with these interconnect agreements is anybody dialing from our network to another network requires us as Vox Telecom to actually pay those other networks for the pleasure of terminating those calls. And this has a nice double-edged effect, because if we are starting a call from Vox network and terminating it with one of the cellular providers, for argument's sake, we have to pay them R1.25 for the pleasure of that call. But the converse of that is also true. So anytime anybody is phoning from a cellular network into the Vox network, we as Vox Telecom receive R1.25. And this is a very important aspect of what we've put together within the Telepreneur package to do something which has really never been done, and that's called the Blue Ocean Strategy from our CEO, Mr. Doug Reed. And that is for the first time to offer customers rebates on calls that they are receiving on their Vox units. And please understand, a lot of people say, how can you do that? Must be smoke and mirrors. It's not costing us any money. We are receiving this money, and what we're saying is we're wanting to share that with you, the consumer. So for argument's sake, with a cellular call coming into your Vox network or to your Vox phone, you will be receiving 40 cents rebate per minute. From a landline, you will be receiving 20 cents per minute. And this can add up to quite a substantial savings, which we'll get onto in a moment. A lot of people ask the question, well, that's all good and well, but how much does it cost me to call the Vox network? If you're dialing from a cellular phone, it will cost you a normal cross-network call. What I mean by that is, if you're on Vodacom and phoning MTN, whatever rate you currently pay for that call, it's the same rate that you will be charged calling the Vox network. So depending on the package that you're on, if you're on a Talk 500 with 3 minutes, those will apply. If you're on a pay-as-you-go, whatever the particular rate with whichever company you are, that is going to be the rate that you're going to be paying. If you're phoning from a Telkom landline, your minimum charge is 65 cents and your effective rate is R1.07. So yes, it is slightly more expensive than the normal call, but understand once again, you are getting rebates. The beauty about our service, though, it allows you to use both, and I'll elaborate a little bit more on that in a moment. So if we just have a look at the key benefits that the customer is going to be receiving by coming on board with Vox, the three main components is, number one, cheaper outbound calls to just about all destinations, free Vox-to-Vox calls across the country, local or nationally, and rebates coming back in from any calls that you receive. And when we have a look at those numbers, it's amazing how all of those savings do add up and start to reduce the cost of telecommunications. So how do we make this happen? To enable these savings, we take advantage of the latest technology, and we require customers to have an ADSL line or a DSL line, as it's now referred to.